Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chinmayam vyapiyat sarvam Trailokyam sacharacharam Tatpadam darsitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Very good. Today we were discussing about once I recognize that what I am looking for is moksha, which is same as limitlessness, which is same as Brahman, then I am a mumukshu. For that recognition, I have recognized that all my pursuits or worldly pursuits do not give me or do not get me what I am looking for. I need something which is not there in all these transactions, because the transactions being finite and moksha involves freedom from finiteness, because limitlessness is only moksha and I cannot get that by any process. Therefore, I want to know how to get. So I am a seeker of that moksha, and which you cannot get it any other way, and therefore I become a mumukshu. For him, the scripture teaches and says, you approach a teacher. Tad vijnanartham sa gurum eva abhigachet. Because the problem is centered on the ignorance. So therefore I do not know my true nature. What I am seeking for, I am already that. Why I am seeking if I am already that? Because I do not know that I am already liberated. Therefore I need a knowledge that tells me that I am what I am and not what I think I am. And therefore I need an appropriate teacher, and a teacher who knows his self, and that self not only as his self but the self that pervades all, and that he should know, and to that kind of teacher I should approach. This what the scripture says, and this is what Vedanta tells, is also what Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also advises. Now the question people ask is, why do I need a teacher? Because they always give some evidences or examples, and famous example is Ramana Maharshi didn't have a teacher. So why should I have a teacher? Now, the way the explanation for this is, there are always exceptions to the rule, but we don't make a rule out of exceptions. And what is what is called Saptavada Nyaya. Understand this. Saptavada Nyaya means 7 vadas. So what is 7 vadas? 7 vada is if you are in Madras, you know what is vada is. So vada is like a donut. And this, they sell in the restaurant. So 2 people came from all the way, and they went to the restaurant and they want to eat something. And the fellow asked the server, say, I am very hungry, you have anything for me to eat? And the server gave a list of all those lists, because at that time they didn't have any menu cards. So he gave a list of what all things, and he heard vada. Says, does vada fulfill me? Says, it might. So he said, please bring me vada, because I am very hungry and I want to eat vada. So his friend also ordered vada. So both are eating one vada. Then the fellow found that one vada is not enough to fulfill him. So he says, give me one more. Like that he went on ordering 7 vadas. The other fellow, his friend, stopped with 1 vada because he was full. Now, how much 1 vada costs? Maybe 1 rupee. So the server, when they were ready to pay, server shouted to the manager, this fellow owes 7 rupees because he ate 7 vadas. And the guy refused to pay 7 rupees because he said vada is only 1 rupee. But you ate 7 vadas. Says, I told him I'm hungry. He said vada will fulfill. And he unnecessarily brought all 6 vadas. What fulfill me is only last vada. So I'm going to pay for the last vada. So seventh vada is only efficacious vada. That is satisfying and fulfilling. All others are necessarily he brought it for me to eat and keep me engaged. And therefore I'm going to eat, I'm going to pay only for that vada. So this is the logic. But see, my friend, for him, he brought the seventh vada first time itself, because he stopped with one vada. So when you ask his friend, how could you stop with one vada? Because I ate 6 vadas at home before. I am already full. One vada is enough. The implication is, if you already have the 6 vadas in the previous life, if you come already pre-prepared, then one vada is enough for you to take off. But if you are not started, you need from the beginning all the way. So most of us, we are not exposed to Vedanta before, therefore we need a teacher who can teach us properly. Therefore that is more a norm than the exception. So those Mahatmas who have already are exposed to Vedanta or already have that sadhana in the previous life, and they can be born in a conducive environment and they will take off rapidly. And that's what Krishna says in the 6th chapter when Arjuna asks what happens to a guy who has already studied but did not attain the moksha. So for everyone we need a teacher. When we need a teacher even to play football, or we need a coach to play football, or we need a coach to learn swimming and tennis, for all those things we need a teacher. Then how come we ask the question, why do we need a teacher for spiritual guidance? No, in the universities, no guide is, without any guide, you cannot do even a MS or a PhD. So you need a guide to guide you how to do it, how not to do it, and so on, so that we can easily evolve quickly. So therefore, the scripture advises that one has to go to a teacher. And other people ask is, no, self is a teacher. Says Atma is a teacher. Atma is teacher for everybody, but nobody learns from Atma. So you need an external teacher until I discover Atma is my teacher. So first you need an external teacher to guide one. And some people say all you have to do is sit down and be silent and learn from silence. If I have capacity to learn from silence, then definitely I don't need a teacher. But to gain the capacity to learn from silence, because I have to understand what exactly silence means, for that I need a teacher. Silence is not absence of noise. Silence is, as we'll see, is in spite of noise. Discover that I am all the time silent in spite of all the thoughts that are going, because they are all only external. I am unaffected by the perturbations in the mind. That knowledge, and to gain that knowledge only, I need a teacher. So everyone must have a teacher. So how do I know? Where do I find the teacher? We already mentioned it's only due to the grace of God. You will discover your teacher. But then what should I do? You do your sadhana. You prepare your mind by proper discipline that we have started discussing. And once you are ready, then the teacher shall come to you. As Swami Chinmayananda says, the flower does not have to go in search of a bee. All it has to do is beautify itself and bloom it, and the bee shall come. And that is the law. Therefore, beautify your mind, and Lord Himself will send appropriate teacher. So how do I know who is my teacher when he comes? He says, first thing is, prepare yourself and get any help from satsang. By satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalatatvam, nischalatatve jivan muktaha. Shankaracharya says in Devajovindam, says by satsang, but means by association with the good books, good thoughts and good people, mind evolves, and in the evolution of the mind, you will discover who is your teacher. It is from you that comes, because he is my teacher because he helped me. No teacher will say, I am your teacher. So a proper teacher is one who directs disciple not to himself as the authority, but to the scripture as an authority. Scripture says so, therefore it is so. This is what I learned from my teacher. Therefore, every teacher acknowledged his teacher as the source of knowledge, and source of the knowledge is ultimately is the Vedas. So that is how we have to know what is the meaning of a teacher and why scripture insists that we have to go to a teacher. Now we were discussing last time the 4 Ds or 4 disciplines that are required for student to qualify as a ideal student. One is the discrimination, that is the viveka, the dispassion, that is the vairagya, the discipline, there are 6, the Shat Sampatti, Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, those are discipline in the mind required, and mumukshutvam or the desire. So the discrimination, dispassion, discipline and the desire for moksha are required for one to evolve. These are essentially the 4-fold qualifications, and the sadhana chatushtayam, and Shankaracharya defines these elaborately in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, the first sutra where Athato Brahma Jigyasa, then therefore inquire, when or thereafter, when after gaining these 4-fold qualifications, Brahma Jigyasa. So one can go from mumukshu to jignasu by inquiring. Jignasu means you have to inquire. So it requires a mind to inquire. Therefore, the mind has been now prepared by the 4-fold qualifications that are required for the student. So with that, we have prepared a student in terms of what is required for an ideal student. In that we were examining the 4-fold qualifications, and we're talking about the discrimination, and the discrimination or viveka is first, which is essential in all this. So throughout our life, throughout the spiritual growth, this is most important for us. What is that involves? It is nitya, anitya, vastu, viveka. So it is a discrimination of what is real and what is not real. That's what the definition of that. What is real is nityam, that which does not undergo any modification. That's what we define as nityam. Anadi, this is the Trikala abhaditam satyam, satyameva nityam. So Trikala abhaditam, that which is not or cannot undergo any change at any time, a changeless entity which remains same all the through, that alone is the satyam, and that is almost nityam because it is eternally present. And that is the definition of what is real. So what is real, we should have clear understanding. So what is real is unchanging, unmodifiable, that which cannot undergo any modifications, nirvikaraha. That is what is called nityam. So is there anything, something in this, that kind, in this world, in this universe? The scripture says yes. The Brahman that you are looking for is nityam. Why? Brahman itself means infinite. So infinite cannot undergo modification. If it undergoes modification, it's not infinite. So only finite things can go under modification. So by definition, only thing that does not, that meets this criteria is only Brahman. So what is nitya, anitya, vastu viveka? Now we have to see what is Brahman and what is not Brahman in this using the discrimination. So how do I know how to discriminate? Because I don't know Brahman in order for me to discriminate, and that's why I'm studying here. So yes, this is what I had to learn, and that's why you need a teacher. The process is because it's extremely subtle. It is how can I differentiate something that I cannot really perceive, I cannot really know. And that's why Vedanta becomes a means for which a teacher is required. Now, this nityam and that is real, there is unreal, because nitya, anitya, vastu viveka is what is discrimination. So I need to know real and unreal. So what is unreal? Now, we have to be careful. We'll try to see logically, because there are a lot of confusion comes into this, and because of the many acharyas also define in a different ways. So, according to Advaita, that which is eternally present is Nityam. That is, Brahman alone is Nityam. So, that we have defined. Now, the second question that you say, then what is Anityam, what is Asatyam? Sat, Asat, Vilakshanam. Sorry. That which is eternal and that is which is changing, real and unreal. But unreal is actually defined as that which has no locus for existence. So unreal is that where there is no locus for existence. In the Nyaya Vaiseshikas, they have defined that there is no way there can be. The simplest example and the appropriate example is Vandhyaputraha. Vandhyaputra means son of a barren woman. So there cannot be son of a barren woman because it's illogical, self-contradictory. Because the Vandhya and Putraha do not match there. Because Vandhya itself means cannot have a child. And if there is a child, so it is a contradictory. So there is a self-contradiction in the word itself. There cannot be an object which is called Vandhyaputraha. A person that is Vandhyaputraha. So it is non-existence in the universe. Therefore, it is Trikalamabhi. That means either in the past or present or future, there cannot be anything of that which fulfills the criteria of Vandhyaputraha. That is Asat. Now, we know what is Sat, which is eternally present all the time. And we know what is Asat. Asat means what is real and unreal. We know unreal, its clear definition is there cannot be any locus for its existence at any time. Now, is the world real or unreal? If it is not there, like a Vandhyaputra, I cannot see the world. You say, I see a table, I see a chair, I see this person, I see that person. That means they have to be there existing. So non-existent things I cannot see or I cannot perceive and I cannot even imagine also. Therefore, the world is not unreal. Because I can see, unreal things cannot be. Vandhyaputra I cannot see. So it is not non-existent. There is a locus for existence. There is a chair. There is a locus of an object there, chair. And therefore, every object in the world that I am perceiving and I am thinking and I am analyzing logically or by any pramanas,